it's a little bit of a misconception that I don't know if a lot of people understand, but just because there's a lot of current coming down doesn't mean that fish gets behind something. Like if you've got your lay down, the water's coming from this way, your current, and you've got a log laying here, that fish doesn't always have to sit on the back side. Yeah, it's a real high percentage place, but what happens is when that current comes down and hits square on that log, there's actually a void of like a foot, foot and a half, 2 feet in front of that structure, log, rock, whatever it may be, dock post. There's a void that fish can sit in where that current's hitting directly on it, and it's basically like backflowing. So it lets that fish be able to sit there and kind of be idle. It's a really cool type deal, and it doesn't really get thought about a whole lot when current fishing. But so that just means when you approach this target, let's just say it's a log still, you want to pitch your bait above the, 3 or 4 feet above it, depending on how hard the current is, and just let your jig naturally, or bait naturally flow, with the current, because you don't, going on to the natural deal, obviously you want it to flow as the way the current's going. I don't ever like fishing backwards against current. I'm not saying that shad don't swim up the bank with the water on. I'm not saying that. But the way that fish is looking and positioning, you're going to have a lot better chance for him to bite with it flowing, with him looking into the current, because all he's looking at stuff washing down. It's like a buffet on a conveyor belt. It's just steady coming to him. And I just feel like if you're fishing backwards, you're just looking at everything, right? Like you're seeing his tail's seeing your bait before his face is. And I'm not saying one won't run out there and slap at it, because like I said, obviously the shad or bait will swim up the current, but his easiest meal, and he knows it, is coming down that conveyor belt, and he's looking, up current. So you always want to have your bait, coming that way, even if that means. I fished a open at La Crosse a couple years ago that I was leading after 2 days, and I was actually having to fish backwards. So not my boat turned trolling motor going down current. I had my boat still facing up current, and I was actually pitching the banks just floating backwards, just so I could get a more natural presentation. And I mean, that's just some of the things you got to do depending on how hard the current is in this river that you're dealing with. I've touched on the types of covers. I'll reiterate it a little bit. It's hard to, most of the rivers you're going to have bluff banks, which are going to they'll have current breaks in them that are not real obvious, but they'll just be like a little kick out in the bluff. It's not normally, always a straight bluff. You'll have some juts that jut out and stuff like that, little creases and stuff those fish can back up into. Most of the time it's going to be a lot of laydowns, stumps. Stumps and laydowns are a real big deal up a river. You catch a lot of fish on them, really good current breaks, hold a lot of bait, stuff like that. If you've got a river that's a lot more, recreational type, you might have a lot of houses and stuff on it. You'll probably have a lot of riprap and docks and stuff like that. I will say fishing docks up a river around current is 90% of the time the fish are going to get on the first 2 sets of poles if you've got a pole dock situation going, because that's where it's going to be more natural for him. He's not going to move up and down on a 10-foot dock post with a lot of current coming by him. Now, if the current slows down, he'll ease out to the end, but he'll stay on that. His more current break type stuff's going to be closer to the bank, just because the current is always going to get lesser as you get closer to the bank. So that would be a key to keep in mind if you have docks present in your river or anything like that.
Bass U, folks. Information is pouring over. If you want to learn more about every lake, how to fish shallow, deep, in between, skipping docks and rocks and cranking, slow wiggling, chatter, smattering, you get it at Bass U. Get on Bass U TV, check it out, sign up, be a member, be part of it, folks. Keep learning.